Hey guys, this is JC from the future. While watching this, sometimes I was like, ugh, so I'm sorry if I say anything that rubs you off the wrong way, all that stuff, but I do appreciate you watching with an open heart and kindness. So I hope you guys enjoy my little journey in finding Christ again. Anyway, peace.
So my story with Catholicism, Christ, and all that sweet jazz starts when I was 5 years old. I remember the conversation. I was in my old home, my childhood home in Washington, and I was talking with my mom, and she introduced me to these concepts of God and Him being this omnipotent being living in this realm called heaven where everything is perfect, and you go there if you're a good Catholic, Christian, just a good believer. When you die, you're not sinful, your heart is pure, and all of that. I also remember learning about the concept of except when I think I was 6 when I learned about him. I imagined him as an Italian butler with a really bushy mustache. I remember asking if he had a mustache. And along with my first thoughts of belief with this religion, I also had my first instance of disbelief, because I went up to my room and I started to call out Satan. I started to call out his power, everything that he did, and nothing happened. But it would be a long time before I started to disbelieve again, because if anything, I really started to go into the faith. At 10 years old, I understood what the mortal sins were, and if you don't know what those are, they're basically borderline unforgivable sins. And when it comes to the Catholic religion, you have to confess to a priest. So I stopped cussing for almost 2 years straight. Move on to 16 years old, and things are very different. I've gone to a lot of retreats, I've gone to a lot of camps, meetings, all these things involving the church, and I just saw too much human in it. It just wasn't adding up. For an organized religion that was said to be created through the words of an all-loving being and his son, it just didn't make sense what was going on. The people, what they were doing outside of it versus what they were it just wasn't making sense. So at that age, I basically denounced the Catholic religion, Christ, all that stuff, at least how it was portrayed to me, for the next 4 years. And I just kind of had an open-ended, there was a lot of untied ends when it came to my relationship with God, heaven, Christ, and all that stuff. Then through my spiritual experiences within the next 4 years, I'd say I had a lot of run-ins with God, and not to say Jesus per se himself, maybe, probably. It's a different video. But about a week ago, I was sitting out in my living room and I was feeling pretty bummed out again. So this thought popped into my head of, what if I find Christ again? And as I reached for my phone to go buy a Bible, I had another thought pop up. Where did he learn everything? Where was he when he was 10 years old? Or was he when he was 20 years old? Why do I only know him in his last few years of life? So then this started sparking up a search. And so I tried to look for it in the Bible. And then when reading about the Bible, I heard something about the King James Version. So when I looked into it, I learned that the King James Version is a version of the Bible that was of the Bible that was funded by King James IV and King James I. This struck a negative chord with me. You see, a reason that I don't really read books too much anymore is because they're just a person's perspective. And a perspective leaves certain things out and leaves certain things in. And when you're reading someone else's perspective, it's up to them on what you get to read. Now, when it comes to the story of supposedly one of the holiest men to grace the earth, I want the full unedited story. I want it untouched. Or at least as untouched as I can get it. So I started to look up unedited versions of the Bible. And to sum it up, the answer I got was, good luck, Charlie. From what I found, one of the earliest versions of the Bible was in 200 BC by the Jews in a word, and it was called a word that I can't pronounce, that right there. And one of the first major edits was in 144 AD. I think his name is pronounced Marcion. Completely denounced the Jewish Bible, took 10 scrolls of Paul, 10 letters of Paul, and one gospel, put that together. That's the Marcion Bible. Now imagine you were raised on that Bible, that version of Christ, that story. And then as you get older, you learn about the Jewish Bible. You were raised on this perception that completely neglected this other bit of information. What I'm trying to say is I don't like people controlling what I can and can't see. So this started a slew of searches, and I started learning about all the different edits in the Bible, and I decided I wasn't going to read it. At least, not yet, because there are too many filters of perception. And then I found something. The Gnostic Gospels. In 1945 in Nag Hammadi, a jar was found with 52 papyrus texts that were Gospels and secret documents of Jesus and his beliefs. And they were buried in the Egyptian desert. And 2 of these scrolls were the Gospel of Thomas and the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. Now, I've had a lot of crazy run-ins with Christ, as I've said, and I'm going to make a video about everything leading up to this. But to me, this was a very interesting sign. Because the Gospel of Thomas is essentially the disciples and Jesus having conversations. It's different parables of them asking questions and him giving answers. And the Gospel of Mary Magdalene portrays Mary Magdalene as one of his favorite disciples, if not his favorite disciple, where he even shares something that he doesn't share with the other disciples. Peter gets upset, asks her to share, then essentially calls her a liar. And Levi has to come in and be like, hey, chill out. And so I bought it. Also, people, a little happy guy right there. And honestly, I think this is really the only version of Christ that I could resonate with right now. Again, I haven't really read the other gospels, so I might be speaking too soon. Here's the thing. They're not recognized by the church as canon at all. And you know what? No. You know what? Watch this. Ooh, welcome to the JC's Journal official book review. This is one of the most dense books I've ever read in terms of knowledge. It's really not that thick, but when you're reading it, you're like... So there are 2 phrases I want to share, just because, wow. This is from Mary Magdalene. So in this, Peter is asking Jesus a question, and he says, Peter said, as you've told us almost everything, tell us this also. What is the world's sin? Jesus replied, there is no sin in reality. It is you who creates sin when you do deeds such as adultery that are called sinful. Let me explain on this a little bit. There's no sin in reality. My understanding of this is that there is... Let's go with perception. Until I was 5 years old, I never understood the concept of God being this omnipotent being, of heaven being a realm, of all these things. If you do not understand the concept of sin and what a sin is, in your reality, sin does not exist. There might be certain actions that you consider good and bad, but you would never call them sinful purely because you literally don't understand that concept. You're not even aware of it. However, if you are introduced to the concept of sin and you do something bad, such as murder, adultery, other things like that, you're not going to call them only bad, you're going to also call them sinful. Make sense? That's why good enters your heart to return you back to your source. This is why you get ill and eventually die. He who understands, let him understand. He always says that kind of as like a mic drop, because he does drop some pretty crazy things. But that's why good enters your heart to return you back to your source. You see, my understanding of Jesus is this man was raised in, he was an ordinary man. He was born just like the rest of us. He's not above us. He's an equal. In fact, he's just a shower of human potential. Granted, you are able to reach these states of alignment and enlightenment. But your source, every human being, when you are in alignment, you are so immensely powerful. If you check out my video where I integrated with source, you can see just that one little scrape of integrating with source, and my body was completely lubricated. I felt great. It's a lot of energy. So when you're out of alignment, you need that energy to enter back into your heart, to bring you back into your source, that state of alignment. Everyone experiences this every single day. You have those moments where you feel really, really good. You feel on top of the world in a sense. That is a form of alignment. This is why you get ill and eventually die. That one's all up to you. Now we're going to go to the Gospel of Thomas. And in this, he says, if those who lead you say God's kingdom is in heaven, then birds will fly there first. If they say it is in the sea, the fish will swim there first. For God's kingdom dwells in your heart and all around you. When you know yourself, you too shall be known. What he's trying to say is God's kingdom is not a physical place. It is not just a realm of existence somewhere else. And I'm pretty sure most people understand that part. But the important part is, for God's kingdom dwells in your heart and all around you. Again, going back to that state of alignment. When you are in that state, you see the beauty in everything. Life is completely based on your perception of it. This room can be hell on earth. All my walls are white. They're just white. I have one closet. I have a small bed that I didn't even buy. It's not even small, it's a queen size. It's pretty comfy. But you see that change right there? I don't want to see my world as that. If anything, I live in heaven. I have the herb shops that I want nearby. I have my job nearby. I have great grocery stores nearby. I have great people. I live in heaven. But that's because my awareness is more in my heart. If you are seeking that bliss that you believe to be in heaven, that perfectionism, that glory, that holiness, all you have to do is look within yourself. And if you've had those deep meditations where you completely detach from who you are, from your name, from your people, from the attachments you have, you've experienced this. Am I wrong? I don't know. There are many things. There are many meditations talking about the sacred space of the heart. There are many times. If you've gone looking deep, you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, congratulations, go down that rabbit hole. But I could also be totally wrong. Completely wrong. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. He also follows that with, you'll be aware that you're the sons and daughters of our living Father. But if you fail to know your own self, you're in hardship and are that hardship. If you're not consistently dwelling within your heart, you're not going to be aware that you are in God's kingdom, that you are the son and daughter of our living Father. A way that I like to help me read this is, when I think God, I still kind of have those old concepts of this male figure, this omnipotent being, but that's a separation of self. I don't like that, because that's not true. And in this, he talks about a lot about bringing everything into one, no separation. So I like to think of it as source or self whenever I read God's kingdom or living Father, and it makes it not as confusing, oddly. But if you fail to know your own self, you're in hardship and are that hardship. Think about those times where you're being fake. Think about those times where you're living, where you have to put up a facade for someone. You are not being yourself. And it's kind of stressful when you have to twist up your own personal truth for someone else. And if you make a lifestyle out of that, no one is loving you for who you really are. That is going to bring a lot of hardship, but not only that, you are the hardship. You literally are the reason that everything is going wrong, because you're embodying this personality, this facade, because you don't know yourself. Learn thyself and all things will be good. That is the end of my little book review. And if anyone, you know what? I'm going to leave you guys with a sentence. Jesus might be a disciple of Babaji. Anyway,